Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I am literally so excited that it is finally October and that I finally get to film this video, and that is going to be my spooky Halloween kind of horror-ish recs for you guys. So really excited to talk through my stack of books that I have over here, and I also decided to dress up for the occasion. Obviously I am dressed as my cat Poppy. Personally, I think we look like twins and she does not like being held. I'm so sorry. Okay. I thought we could do a fun little bit for the video, but she's not into it, so it's fine. So I do also have a video where I gave you guys a couple of like more cozy atmospheric fall recommendations if you're more into that. But the books that I want to talk about today are a little bit more on the scary side, a little bit better for like October specifically, and really good Halloween reads. So hopefully I can give you guys some ideas for your October reading. And yeah. That's all I have to say. We're just gonna get into it. I'm so excited. So I have 11 books to talk about and we're just gonna jump into it. So the first one I have is actually a series that I wanted to recommend to you guys. I think I might have also recommended this in my video last year, but I finally have, I think it's completed. I've read all the books that are out in the series, so I'm going to fully recommend it to you, and that is the Cassidy Blake series by Victoria Schwab. I love this series so much. It's a middle grade series about this girl who can like talk to ghosts and help them move on to the afterlife. She's always hanging out with her ghost best friend. There's a cat. But this series is honestly just so fun. The girl's parents are like paranormal investigators, kind of. They have a TV show which allows them to go to a bunch of different cities and look at all the haunted locations in those cities. So I think the first one, they go to Edinburgh. The second one, they go to Paris. And then the third one, they go to New Orleans. I think personally the one where they go to Paris is my favorite, but I love all of them so much. They're just a really fun time. And every now and then I did get like a little bit scared. Like not fully scared, but it was kind of like, it's a little creepy. If I was like 12 reading these, nah. And I would absolutely recommend this series. Victoria Schwab's writing is always just great. It's a little bit less descriptive in her middle grade series, but it is still fantastic nonetheless. So this is just it's a really fun series, so I definitely recommend. Next up I have another middle grade series, but I'm going to be specifically recommending the second one to you guys, and that is Dead Voices by Katherine Arden. I read this book for Summerween this year, so you've probably seen me talk about it, but this book is really good for the spooky season because it is just kind of scary. It does take place in winter, so like a little bit like not the fall vibes, but it's still got like ghosts and stuff in it, so definitely a little bit scary. It follows our main character Ollie and her two best friends, and they end up going to this ski resort in the middle of nowhere. There's like this really aggressive blizzard going on, so they get stuck there. And as it turns out, this ski resort is actually haunted and weird things are going on. I feel like you might have to read the first book in this series, which is Small Spaces, first, but if you did want to just jump in with this one, I feel like that would be fine. Although, another like honorary mention, because I think I talked about this one in my video last year too, Small Spaces is great and it does give you a fall vibe as opposed to this one because it takes place like in fall. It's like a creepy scarecrow coming after them. That one's really fun, but I think this one may have been just a little bit creepier because like the power went out and there's like ghosts in the hallways. It's this big lodge. It's really cool. So definitely if you're looking for something a little bit like not super scary, but like a really fun Halloween kind of read, I'd recommend this one. And then I want to talk about another V.E. Schwab book really fast, and that is Gallant. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews of this book. A lot of people don't like it. Personally, I really enjoyed this book and I think it would be a perfect read for fall. It follows her main character, Olivia Pryor, who is living in an orphanage, and all she has in her possession is this journal that belonged to her mother, which has a bunch of like weird writing and drawings and such throughout it. And on the back page of that journal, all it says is like, don't go to Gallant, which is like this mansion estate kind of thing. But then one day she gets a letter from her uncle who was like, hey, you should come hang out with us at Gallant. And she's like, sure, yeah, why not? And when she gets there, she actually finds out that her uncle is dead. There's this creepy garden gate behind the mansion that kind of leads to this alternate reality type of thing. Our main character, Olivia, can also see ghouls, which is really interesting. And I feel like this is like it's a slow book, but it gives you like that creeping, slow kind of feeling, you know? So definitely would be a really good fall read. I love the writing in this book and it's great. That's kind of like my middle grade YA Not really sure what Gallant is, to be honest, but that was like that section. So now we're going to move on to my other section. First of all, I want to talk about a couple of classics. Mainly, I finished this really long classic earlier this year, and I'm going to take every excuse to talk about it. So definitely have to recommend Dracula to you guys. Honestly, it's just like such an achievement that I finished this book. I'm like, yes. Yeah, come on. I mean, like, it's a perfect gothic classic. I love the beginning part of this book that actually takes place in Dracula's castle, but they eventually go to this place called Whitby by the seaside. A lot of, like, that portion of the book takes place in a graveyard, which we all know how I feel about books that take place in graveyards. It was just really good. It is a little bit slow, not gonna lie, and I do think the ending could have been a little bit more action-packed, but also it was the 1890s, so I'm gonna let it slide, and I just think it is literally the perfect book to read in October. I read it in June, so like not my best plan, but I know if I had left it until October, I wouldn't have read it. So I'm glad that I read it when I did. It was great, absolutely must read in October, you know? And then I also wanted to talk about another vampire classic, which is Carmilla. I didn't love Carmilla as much, but it's a really short vampire classic, so if you want something that's like a quick read but still good for the season, I would still definitely recommend Carmilla. It follows, I don't remember what our main character's name is. I still cannot remember what her name is. Laura. Yes, her name is Laura. And, you know, this weird girl comes to live with them for a few months. For what reason, I don't even remember, to be honest. Turns out she's a vampire. There's sapphic undertones in it. I'd recommend it. You know, it's only like 140 pages. I also just really find this one to be an interesting read because it was a vampire story that was written before Dracula. Good vampire classics. I feel like if you like vampire stories at some point in your life, you gotta read these, you know what I'm saying? So moving on, I have some adult horror, which I feel like I don't read a lot of adult horror, to be honest, which is something I would like to change. I feel like I love spooky things, and I just need to find horror books. That's it, I just need to find more horror books. So first up, I did want to recommend a Stephen King book to you guys because I do really enjoy some of Stephen King's work. So I think last year I recommended Pet Sematary and Salem's Lot to you guys, which still remain my favorites, but I thought we could talk about Misery for a second because this one doesn't quite give me horror vibes, but it does give me thriller vibes. It is a little bit gruesome in some areas though, so I feel like that's definitely where like the horror elements come in. It's still scary in its own right, don't get me wrong. It's super isolating. It takes place in like this crazy woman's house, and our main character is like bedridden, so he can't leave, and she's gonna like murder him. You know, like, this woman's insane. So we have our main character whose name is Paul Sheldon. He is a very famous writer. Who's shocked that a main character in a Stephen King novel is a writer? Literally, they all are. But one day he's like driving in the snow, and that then eventually causes him to get in a car like accident, and he's like stuck. Nobody's gonna find him. He's gonna die until his biggest fan comes and rescues him and takes him to her house because his legs are like shattered. He cannot move, but turns out she's a crazy bitch and she's pissed that he killed off her main character in his last book. So she wants him to rewrite it for her and then he can leave. This book is scary, not in like a paranormal way, but kind of like a this thing could like technically actually happen kind of way, which I feel like makes it even more terrifying. So it's definitely very suspenseful. It's just really good. The movie adaptation for it is also really good. I believe Kathy Bates won an award for it. She won an Oscar for it. An Academy Award? Not the same thing. I don't know. It's a good movie. I would recommend. Next up, I have another book that I've read rather recently, and that is The Ghost Tree by Christina Henry. This follows our main character who's like, how old is she? 15 maybe? But it doesn't really read like a book with a 15-year-old main character. There are like some gruesome aspects to it. But it follows her whose dad was like mutilated in the woods one day near this very gnarled looking tree, which is called the Ghost Tree. So she wants to figure out what happens. It also follows a couple of other different POVs that are also trying to figure out what happens. I also mentioned another book by Christina Henry in my last video, which is The Horseman, which I am also so excited to get into. I just love the way that Christina Henry writes. There's this one segment of this book that was like going back in time and somebody was like telling a story about these witches, and that was like the best part. It was like 10 pages, but I was like, yes, I need more of that. So I'm hoping her other books have like more writing like that. But this one is still really good. Alright, so next up I want to recommend 2 books by Grady Hendrix. First of all, we have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and then we also have My Best Friend's Exorcism. I definitely enjoyed the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires more. Again, any book with vampires, I was like, yeah. Although I don't necessarily love books where like vampires are the antagonist, my favorite kind of stories are where you follow like vampires as being the main characters, but still like any story with vampires in it I will enjoy. This one definitely has that. It gave me a really big like Salem's Lot feeling by Stephen King, like very similar vibes, but this one was like just even more fun because you're following this housewife from the 90s who is just so convinced that a vampire moved in down the street, and everybody's like, bitch, you're crazy, but she's not, and it's kind of just her trying to get him to leave, basically. Kill him, murder him, I don't know. It's a vampire story. Slay him? Yeah, she's slayed. But the only problem I have with this book is the fact that it's called the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, but like, the book club that she's in literally thinks she's insane, and they don't help her until like the last 30 pages. So I don't love the title. I feel like it doesn't really reflect the book that well. I feel like it's just her. I really love recommending these together because they're actually set in the same town. It's not really like a sequel or anything. It's not related in any way. So if you're gonna pick one of these books, I would definitely recommend this one, but My Best Friend's Exorcism is also just like a fun time. I think I gave this one a 3 stars, but it follows our main character whose best friend gets possessed and she's trying to exorcise the demon from her. It's really just like a book about friendship at its heart because our main character, is her name Abby? Yeah, she will not give up on Gretchen, and I respect her for that. Like, she will do anything to save her friend. But it's just, again, a really fun time. This one takes place in the 80s, whereas that other one takes place in the 90s. And I just love horror things that take place in like the 80s and 90s. I just feel like they always give me that nostalgic horror flick vibe. It's not like amazing, but it's really fun. And then the last recommendation that I have for you guys is a graphic novel, and that is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This is a collection of 5 mysterious, spine-tingling stories that follows journeys into and out of the eerie abyss. Come take a walk in the woods and see what awaits you there. Like, come on. It kind of gives me Over the Garden Wall vibes, but I think that's just because it takes place in the woods and it's creepy. I literally love the art style in this so much. I think it's gorgeous. It really just has like black, white, red, and blue, so like all of the reds and blues really pop, which I love. My favorite story out of here is A Lady's Hands Are Cold. I won't tell you why because like that's the creepy aspect, obviously, but that one was really cool and scary. But yeah, if you're looking for just like a quick read that's really good for October, nothing like, it's a pretty low commitment kind of book, obviously, I would definitely recommend this. Oh, I totally forgot to put him up. That's disappointing. So anyway, those are just a couple of Halloween recommendations that I have for you guys. I hope you found something in this video that you found interesting, or maybe you want to check out, or maybe you've read some of these and you agree, or maybe you disagree. That's cool too, but those are just a couple of the ones that I personally think are perfect for October. So do let me know down below if you're gonna pick any of these up, or give me some more recs for October, because I need to add more things to my TBRs. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.